Таны төлөө эх орон чинь юу хийж чадах вэ гэж асуухаас өмнө та өөрөө эх орныхон төлөө юу хийж чадах вэ гэж асуу. Young Federal Canada.
Good evening. Tonight we have Graham Watts, our guest, who used to work for Financial Times for many years, journalist who visited several times Mongolia and just finished another training for Mongolian journalists. So, good evening.
Good evening.
You have been visiting Mongolia several times. Tell us how, when was that first your visit, and what was the most visible things you can compare or change it in this country?
Mm-hmm. Well, I first came here in 1997. That was a week-long training program for economic business journalists. That was through the Press Institute here, which I'm delighted to see is still going, and not only going but thriving. It's almost, from what I can tell, something of a model. It's the sort of thing that I recommend in other countries that I go to, saying, you know, having this kind of support is a wonderful thing for journalists. Then I was here again in, I think, 2004 and again in 2005. So this is my fourth visit, but it's been 5 years since I was here, and of course 5 quite important years, because this has been the period, I think, when people have been sitting up and recognizing that Mongolia is becoming a pretty big player in extractive industries, and there's a lot of action coming down the line, and it's going to be interesting to see what that's going to be.
Graham Watts Rhodes их сургуульд урлагийн бакалавртаа сэтгүүлчийн мэргэжил эзэмссэн. Лондонд Financial Times-д байгууллагын зааварлагч багш. Financial Times-д хувийн зөвлөх багш. Таиландд Индочина медиа нэрэмжит санд зааварлагч. Берлинд сэтгүүл зүүн олон улсын институтад зааварлагч. Таиланд болон Вьетнамд Азийн уулзалт болон бусад албаны уулзалтанд ахлагч. Хельсинкид Эдинскийн их сургууль, Ханкенд урилгаар лекц уншигч. Таиланд болон Мянмарт зааварлагч. Лондонд Сити их сургуульд сэтгүүл зүй болоод олон нийтийн харилцаанд лекц уншигч. Висконсинд Мэдисоны их сургуульд сэтгүүл зүйн магистрийн туслах. Ажиллаж байсан улсууд: Хятад, Индхэг, Индонез, Кен, Малайз, Монгол, Мянмар, Нигер, Пакистан, Филипп, Сингапур, Өмнөд Африк, Швейцар, Таиланд, Вьетнам, Замбия, Зимбабве. 2008 онд Умеш Рамакришнаны дээш гарах цахилгаан шат үгүй. Редактор. 2008 онд Жорж Магнусын хөгшрөх үеийн зөвлөх редактор. 2008 онд Жозеф Евстиглиц болон Линда Белмисийн 3 тэрбумын дайны зөвлөх редактор.
We became Mongolia for a while.
Mongolia, I've read that, yes, that concept.
13 years, which is quite important years for this country, young democracy. And in terms of democracy, well, there is a quite much freedom of speech. We enjoy it. Do you see any? If you compare, you have been living in, you are living in Bangkok.
That's right.
If you compare these two countries in these terms of freedom of speech and media, what is your first impression?
Well, my first impression is probably partly influenced by you, because before coming here, I was obviously reading a lot online and whatever I could get my hands on, including your blog and your column in the papers here, and I was delighted to see the energy and the apparently pretty free ideas that you express. This is less evident in the reporting itself that goes on in the newspapers that I am able to read, and those stories which have been translated for me. I get the impression that there's a lot less use of that freedom than there might be, which is not unlike what I experience in other developing countries, where journalists have the freedom, but often don't have the skills or the institutional support that would allow them to express that freedom more. And by freedom, I'm not talking so much about being critical and criticizing your government, but actually making use of the opportunities you have to present not only information, but analyze that information and contribute to the financial literacy of a society. So I see that as being less developed than it perhaps might be.
Why you think it is in this way?
Well, in most cases, it's because the media institutions themselves are weak for various reasons. Often that weakness is because of their lack of commercial viability in some countries. Although that doesn't seem to be the case here. What surprised me more than anything else to see how many daily newspapers there are. I mean, I think everybody knows Mongolia is a big country, but sometimes one has to be reminded that in fact the population's pretty small. And to see, what is it, 16, I believe, even possibly 17 soon, daily newspapers in a country this size is remarkable. What that seems to do is it kind of spreads the talent too thinly. If that were a little more concentrated, I think journalists would be given more support. By that I mean better pay, for example, better resources to be able to do their jobs better.
Is it because there is a less competition, or it is not saturation of market, or still so much freedom to spread away?
Well, I mean, it would seem with 16 newspapers that's in a way too much competition. So it puzzles me as to why that's the case, but as far as I can make out, this is, again, not unusual. I saw this in Cambodia, for example. After Cambodia became democratic, there was a sudden huge mushrooming of newspapers, which is not unusual because I guess people like to express that freedom.
Logically, down the road, do you expect it to be a bit narrow, fewer?
I would imagine so. I think it would make more sense to the media owners, unless their agenda is primarily political,